Hello everyone, and good evening or good day, depending where you are on the planet at the moment, or later if you're watching it today. I've got Anthony with me, so we're back in action as Double Trouble. So how you doing? All good?
Doing wonderful. How are you?
Okay, good.
Right,
Good to have you back. It was getting a bit lonely here.
It's been a long time, you know.
Okay, great. So now that we're back in action, now as you know, this is our third semester. We're studying from the social writings of Rabash, and what we're going to do today is an article called, on page 21, according to what is explained concerning love thy friend as thyself. Now this article is just over 4 pages long, okay, but we do need to finish it off. So I'm going to get smashing straight away. So this lesson might be a bit longer than the usual, like, 50 to 1 hour kind of range, but we should finish this article. It's going to be a good foundation for us if you join us to study in the group. All right, so let's get smashing then. According to what is explained concerning love thy friend as thyself, page 21, Rabash Social Writings. It's this book. You can also find it on the internet. You can download the PDF free of charge, or you can just download it on our website free of charge as well. According to what is explained concerning love thy friend as thyself, all the details of the 612 commandments are contained in this rule. It is as our sages say, the rest is its commentary, go study. This means that by keeping the 612 commandments, we will be rewarded with the rule, love thy friend, and following that, the love of God. Now, as I go along, I'm just going to make a few clarifications so we don't get confused. When we're talking about commandments, we're talking about correcting our egoism at a certain degree, okay? So the article basically in this first paragraph says, listen, we've got 612 commandments, which are 612 corrections that we need to do in our soul. So as you know, spirituality starts when you start developing a soul. Initially, nobody has a soul. We went over this before, so I'm not going to go into that all over again. Spirituality means that I develop a soul from scratch. In order for me to do that, I need to attain a new trait, which is called the love of others. In order to get to the love of others, and thus henceforth to get to the love of the Creator, which we'll delve into in a minute, it says I have to make upon myself 612 corrections, meaning change my egoistic nature to bestowal. That's what it's talking about. So it has nothing to do with any religious commandments whatsoever. So don't get hung up on there. If you studied religion before, you might be thinking about religious commandments. No, has nothing to do with it. This is only for the purpose where a person is correcting his inner egoistic nature into something of bestowal, and that means he did a commandment. He made a correction upon himself. So let's get smashing, carrying on. Thus, what does love of friends give us? It is written that by gathering a few friends together, since they each have but a small force of love of others, meaning they can carry out the love of others only potentially when they implement it, they remember that they have decided to relinquish self-love in favor of love of others. But in fact, one sees that he cannot relinquish any pleasure of the will to receive in favor of another, not even a bit. So when we come to the group, when we want to come and study the wisdom of Kabbalah, we're talking about a person who has a dot in the heart, which we went over in the first semester. So a person who's really seeking the meaning of life, wants to know why he's living, what's the purpose of life, and why we exist, and he's trying to really go after that. He has a dot in the heart, and this dot in the heart is just a little spark. It's just a dot, exactly a small dot. It's a sensation and urge to discover the meaning of life. On its own, it's only a potential. By itself, it does not have the force to push a person to change or to correct himself. But as the article says, if a group of people come together, then from amongst themselves, they can find the force to apply love of others. Now, he's asked the first question here, what does love of others, what does love of friends give us? What does loving others really give a person? Well, we're about to find out, but what we just found out was you can't do it on your own, which should be actually obvious to everyone. How can I come to the love of any person if I'm on my own? It can never happen. There has to be someone in front of me to love. However, by assembling a few friends who agree that they have to achieve the love of others, when they annul themselves before one another, they are all intermingled. Thus, in each person there accumulates a great force according to the size of the association, and then each can execute the love of others in actual fact. All right, so we need to come together and we need to agree. So everyone in the group, you know what, let's do this as we draw it along. All right, so when we get together, a few of us, right, there we go. This is, let's say, a group. A group. Okay, so inside a group, if there's a few of us, let's say there are 10 of us. Okay, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. All right, so there are 10 of us. If there are 10 of us, because all of us just have a little spark, it's just a little dot, okay, a little inclination for spirituality. Doesn't have a force of its own. If we all come together and if we all agree that we want to love each other, we want this brotherly love to happen inside of us, if we agree to that, then we'll have the power, because we're all connected to each other through this desire, through this urge. Okay? So let me do that. And this urge is very, very important, because without it, we cannot make it. So all of us are connected to each other, essentially by this dot in the heart. Because if we didn't have this dot in the heart, we'd never come here. We'd never seek the meaning of life. We wouldn't really pursue it. We'd just be, wandering about in life. So all of us somehow are all connected to each other. And in the previous articles, we learned about that. We said if each and everyone nullifies towards the other, pacifies his or her ego towards the other, then what we can actually do is start to connect with each other. Okay, because the only thing that's really holding people back from connecting with each other is our egoism, is our self-value, which is more valuable to us than others. So egoism is an exaggerated value that I give to myself. And if I give myself an exaggerated value, it means I decrease the value of other people. So in that state, there is no way I can really connect with someone, because we're not on equal terms. But if I reduce my egoism, if I reduce the boundaries that are between us, all the, anything actually, any kind of feeling, sensation, thought even, desire, anything that's really against connecting with others, if I can just nullify it, just reduce it, just pacify it in this work, then that'll actually give me an opportunity, excuse me, to feel somebody else which is outside of me, to feel their inner urge for spirituality as well. And that's how we can actually connect with people. So it really necessitates that a group of people come together and they all agree that this is what they're going to do. This mutual agreement is very important. This is why we need a group, and this is why we do not practice spirituality in the outside world with other people, because it needs to be a mutual understanding. All right, because the people on the outside are still egoists. They don't want to change their egoism. They don't want to love you. They want to love you as much as they can use you or get things from you. This is what the desire to receive enjoys, what I get from other people. And that's what's called friendship on the outside. So on the outside world, in corporeality, everybody's friendship really depends on the taste they get from their friendship, because they fulfill their desires to receive. However, though, what we want to do is to come to such a state where I'm not worried about fulfilling my desire to receive. I'm more worried about connecting with other people in this attribute called the love of others, which should essentially afterwards bring us to the love of the Creator, which we learned before is an attribute. So when we say the love of God or the love of the Creator, we're talking about receiving or developing this attribute of love, which is the way that the Creator loves. So we're talking about acquiring His character, His personality in terms of loving somebody else. And that actually is the purpose of life, because when you're in that trait, you can have existence in the realm, in the reality of the Creator, which in many religious books are called afterlife, while you're living in this world. Because if you die without spirituality in this world, you're not going anywhere. Okay? Afterlife means that I, in this life, change my corporeality to spirituality, and this spirituality is now my afterlife, but I have to attain it while we live here, which is something we also discussed in our first semester's lessons. So let's carry on and let's see what the article says. Okay, so by coming together and nullifying our egoism, each of us gets a great amount of strength. So what do the details of the 612 commandments give us, which we said are in order to keep the rule, since the rule is kept by love of friends? And we see that in reality there is love of friends among people on the outside as well. They too gather in various circles in order to have love of friends. What then is the difference between people that are on the outside and people who study the wisdom of Kabbalah? So let's see what we're talking about here. Okay, let's carry on from one paragraph below. When a few people come together for the purpose of love of friends, with the intention that each and every one will help his friend improve his corporeal state, each anticipates that by having more meetings, they will profit from society and improve their corporeal state. So on the outside world, it boils down to, which I just said a minute ago, you know, when we have friends in corporeality, it's because we spend good time with them, or we have a corporeal benefit. You know, like I have good work colleagues. Why? Because we're all working in the same environment. We want to keep our relation tight. We want to go up in our career. So we keep these relations very nice, comfortable, friendly, so we can move forward in our career. Or in our social life outside, we go out with friends and so forth. Why? Because we understand each other, we have fun going out together, we enjoy the time that we spend with each other. So, there's profit from that. Okay? And that is the kind of friendship that corporeality is right now inside of. And that's what it's all about. Fulfilling the desire to receive. And just like in real life as well, if you're not having fun with someone, if you're not, in the same kind of frequency with someone, you're not really friends with them, are you? No, you have to have a reason to be friends with someone in corporeality. You need to have some kind of benefit. And that's what the friendship on the outside world, on the corporeal level, is all about. Okay? So people who feel that they've got a benefit by being friends hang out with each other. And that's how it is. However, after all the meetings, everyone calculates and sees how much they have received from the association for the self-love that the will to receive has gained by that, since they invested time and effort to benefit society. So what have they gained by it? One could probably succeed more if engaged in self-benefit, at least the part of his own efforts. But I entered the association because I thought that through it I would be able to gain more than I could gain alone. But now I see that I have gained nothing. So there's a person here, if he enters a serious Kabbalah group, we're talking about Bnei Baruch, if he's studying seriously, what that person eventually will come to see is that in my desire to receive, I'm not really ending up with much. And my desire to receive will tell me, listen, you're not getting anything here to fill your desire to receive. And so a person begins to now discern, well, what have I got by connecting with these people? Okay, so this is a right discernment. A person should question it, and a person should understand how these feelings are developing, because in corporeality we're used to having friends with benefits. We never have friends without benefits. If we have friends, there's always a benefit in it. So a person who comes to study the wisdom of Kabbalah in a serious Kabbalistic group, which is directed towards attaining the purpose of life, which is attaining the Creator while living here, will begin to ask, well, what am I getting from this? Then one regrets and says, I would be better off using my own little strength instead of giving my time to society. However, now that I have given my time to society in order to gain more properties through help from the society, I finally realize that not only did I not gain anything from society, I even lost what I could have gained alone. So when someone wishes to say that love of friends should be engaged in for the purpose of bestowal, that everyone should work to benefit others, everyone laughs and mocks him. Now this is true. In the outside world, if we were to talk about, we should do everything for others and not think of ourselves at all, people would laugh. They think we're crazy. They think we're living in some kind of la-la land. And for them to think like that is absolutely correct. The reason is they don't have a dot in the heart. If you don't want to know why you're living, if you don't want to chase the purpose of life, if you don't want to discover the purpose of your existence, everything we're studying here about loving others is a bad fantasy movie for people who are living their corporeal lives. People who are living their corporeal lives in order to be fulfilled all the time are in their desire to receive. This is why we also don't explain it, like I said a minute ago, to other people out there in our social circles. We're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah and we only study within the group. So you can't really express these things to people on the outside because they'll just think you're nuts. And that would be true. They would think you're weird and very unrealistic. And in fact, they'll probably think you're mentally unstable. So don't go outside, don't go to the outside world, people who are not in the study group, and talk to them about how we need to love others and so forth, because it's just not realistic. So other people would laugh at you. It seems to them like a kind of joke. And this is a seat of clowns, as they say, or the seat of the scornful. Okay, so people are on the outside who are living in corporeality. It is said about it, but sin is a reproach to any people, and every grace that they do for themselves. So such a society detaches one from holiness and casts him into the world of mockery. This is the prohibition of the seat of the scornful. So if a person, the reason it's talking about prohibition of the seat of the scornful is this: a person who wants to attain the love of others cannot be in such a group. You cannot apply the love of humanity, love of other people in a society or in a community which doesn't care about it. They're not even in there. Their thoughts and direction is not even there. They're not even close to it. So any corporeal society on the outside will always get together for some kind of benefit, whether it's financial, whether it's, it could be financial, it could be business, it could be social benefits too. Any kind of benefit that they see, they'll get together. But here in spirituality, there's only one benefit we're seeking, and that is to go through this inner change. Okay, so for a student of Kabbalah who's seeking spirituality, to be wasting time in there is called being in the seat of the scornful. Why is that called that way? Because as you know, in the first semester we studied free will. Our free choice is in the environment. So if I stick my head in a bad environment, I'm going to be influenced negatively by that environment. So I'll start to want what they want. Instead of spirituality, I'll start to go for corporeal things in life. So this is called, listen, if you're studying the wisdom of Kabbalah and want to get spiritual, you shouldn't be doing that because you're influenced badly by other people. It's the same thing we tell our children when they're growing up. We say, listen, choose your friends well, because if you hang out with bad friends, you'll get into trouble. You'll get into drugs, violence, and end up in all kinds of mess. But if you hang out with good people, with good kids, good friends, then you'll be better in your lessons, you'll be more successful, and you'll have a happier life. It's the same mentality. So if you want a good spiritual, happy life, then you've got to be in a society that promotes that. Our sage said about such societies, disperse the wicked, better for them and better for the world. In other words, it is better that they do not exist. However, it is the opposite with the righteous, assemble the righteous, better for them and better for the world. So disperse the wicked means if there are a group of people who are bad, if you separate them, it's great. Why? Because when bad people get together, even their unity has a good force. When I say a good force, I don't mean a positive force, but I'm just saying when a group of bad people come together, their impact is also powerful. So, for example, in crime, right? If you have gangs, when gangs, they're all bad people, and they get together, they make a lot of bad. And all the little people there, they also get strength from the power of the group. So if there are groups or societies in there who are really striving for corporeal benefits, then obviously they're causing harm to the overall society. So if you split them up, if you break them down, it's better for everyone because they can't use the force of their unity to do greater harm. But with people who are studying spirituality, who want to come to the purpose of life, want to come to, to making that egoistic change to love and compassion, then obviously what you have here is a state where you want to bring them together, because when people who want to love each other get together, they actually give out that force of love, compassion to the surrounding circles. So that gives a positive impact on the whole globe, actually. Okay, this is exactly what we studied, the power of the environment in the first semester. What is the meaning of righteous? It is those who want to keep the rule, love thy friend as thyself. Their sole intention is to exit self-love and assume a different nature of love of others. And although it is a great commandment that should be kept, and that one can force oneself to keep, love is still something that is given to the heart, and the heart disagrees with it by nature. What then can one do to make love of others touch the heart? Okay, so by nature, because we love ourselves, our nature is self-love. So in order for us to convert that and to penetrate inside our heart the love of others, we need to obviously do something. So what can we do? What do we need to do in order to come to such a state that my heart will really feel that I love I love somebody else just like I would love myself? So let's see what the deal is. This is why we were given the 612 commandments. They have the power to induce a sensation in the heart. However, since it is against nature, that sensation is too small to have the ability to keep love of friends de facto, even though one has a need for it. Hence now he must seek advice on how to actually implement it. The advice for one to be able to increase his strength in the rule, love thy friend, is by love of friends. If everyone is nullified before his friend and mingles with them, they become one mass where all the little parts that want the love of others unite in a collective force that consists of many parts. And one has great strength, he can execute the love of others. So this is the key factor, okay? The key here is that we come together with people who have the same aspiration. And if we have the same aspiration and then we nullify our self-ego, then we can actually mix with others. Mixing with others is not a corporeal thing, mind you. Mixing with others means that I want to mix with their inclination to love others, which is the dot in the heart, really. So by nullifying my ego, I'm giving myself the opportunity to link, to hook up with these other inclinations that want to come to the love of friends. And then he can achieve the love of God. But the condition is that each will annul before the other. However, when he is separated from his friend, he cannot receive the share he should receive from his friend. So it's very important for us to understand here that if I'm not in the right environment where I can practice it, I can't really be influenced by it, and I can't really change myself. Now, it's very important to understand here that loving somebody else and loving the Creator or God is not any different. It's important to understand because in the books it says from the love of others we'll get to the love of the Creator. It's like using other people as a stepping stone, to get to the love of the Creator. It's like, the others becomes kind of a mean to get to the goal. However, what we need to understand here is we're going through in spirituality a qualitative change, an inner change. This inner change means that I can love anyone outside of me, including the Creator, without any difference whatsoever. So by attaining this attribute of love of others, whether you love the Creator or love somebody else is no different at all, because you made that inner switch, you made that inner change. Okay, so what we need to do is have a perspective from the beginning that loving somebody else and loving God is not any different, because at the end of the day, this is an attribute which we need to get. Okay, so this is not this is not something we're going to attain to get keys for a treasure box. This is an attribute, an inner change that should bring us to actually love everyone in a correct way, just like the Creator would. That's why it's called to come to the love of God, because you begin to love like God loves you. Right? So that's the whole idea. Rightio then. Let's carry on. Okay. I'm just going to move forward a bit more. Hence, we must remember that the matter of love thy friend as thyself should be kept, because it's a commandment, since the Creator commanded to engage in love of friends. And Kabbalist Akiva only interprets this commandment that the Creator commanded. He intended to make this commandment into a rule by which all the commandments would be kept because of the commandment of the Creator, as well as for self-gratification. Now, when he's saying here that we need to keep the love of others, which is a commandment because God so ordered, it's not like they teach you in religious books, okay, or in religion. God gave us an order and we got to keep it. It's not like that. A commandment really is a law of nature. And this law of nature needs to be embedded inside of us so we actually act according to the laws of nature. Now, in humanity, right, in the corporeal level, when we live in this world, we're living according to the laws of nature, aren't we? We're living according to our laws of nature, our egoistic nature. Right? Our nature dictates to us that we do everything for our self-benefit, and this is how our nature works. And we also see that there is a common nature that we're all inside of. There's the laws of gravity, and then the sun comes up, the sun goes down. Every phenomena in nature is a law, and it's really working under one condition, and that condition is called love. And this is why the whole of reality is governed by this law called love. And by actually attaining this commandment, it's not like we're, attaining commandment because God, wants to give this to us and he's going to punish us if we don't. That's not the point. The point is, this commandment means, this order means you begin to have the ability to integrate yourself into the reality of the Creator. So rather than being stuck in this corporeal life like a two-legged animal, like a chicken, right? Just like a chicken, our lives are not much different. Just like chickens, they leave every morning. What was that thing? What do they call where the chickens live?
The coop.
Chicken coop. Okay, so chicken coop, if you've ever seen chickens in a village or a farm, you'll note, okay, that chickens leave the coop in the morning. And what do they do all day? They feed all day. They go around, they're mostly feeding and so on. And at night, they bring them back to the coop.
Come home to roost.
Exactly. They come home to roost, right? Okay, so chickens on both legs, this is how they live. Now, you look at our lives, it's exactly the same thing, right? In the morning, we leave our house and we go to work. What do? We go to work, we want to make money, bring home food, and then we come home and whatever, watch TV or coop, or we roost. Okay, so it's the same kind of mentality. So God's commandment is actually a state of existence, and that commandment means actually you can elevate yourself to a higher level of consciousness where you can actually sense God, feel God, and live in His reality according to those laws of nature. So in religions, they usually scare you to death, okay, with all kinds of stories that if you don't do this, you're going to get fried in hell. We're already getting fried in this world, so I don't think we need to be worried about getting fried anywhere else. Life is already frying humanity. As you can see, the whole world is burning. There are a lot of fires in California, in Africa, in also Australia right now. It's just the whole world is like, the whole planet is already burning. So we don't have to worry about that. What we need to worry about is, while living in this world, how to elevate ourselves to a higher level of consciousness where we can perceive and exist with the Creator. And that's the whole point of being created in this reality. So from not feeling or sensing the Creator at all, by applying this law in nature, which is called the love of others, you can actually elevate yourself to a higher level of reality. This is why we have two natures: our nature, our human egoistic nature, and also the general laws of nature that exist in nature. And because a person, humanity, is incompatible with the general laws of nature, what do? We destroy the planet. Okay, this is exactly how it's reflected on the environment as well. Wherever humans go, they destroy it. They suck it up dry, and our planet is now nothing but a trash bin. Okay, it's like a recycling warehouse. The oceans are full of plastics. All the water resources are full of plastic, and the planet is just becoming a junkyard. Okay, this is what we humans do because our egoistic nature wants to suck everything dry. Whereas in nature, the laws work in such a way that every existing being, animals, plants, everything, they take only as much as they need, and everything else they give back to nature. This is why in nature there is no waste. But humanity, we love to waste. Our neighbor could be starving to death, but we keep the food in the fridge for tomorrow. Okay? Because this is why we made fridges, this is why we made food that we can stash. Animals don't do these things. They take what is necessary and they give back the rest. This is how nature works. So God's commandment is actually laws of nature. And if we adapt ourselves to the laws of nature, which is the same thing as God's commandments, then we can come to that higher level of perception. And that is actually exactly what we want to get to. In order for us to make that change, this is our playground, the group. So a group of people who have an inclination to be spiritual and to attain this higher level of consciousness can now practice among each other to reduce their egoism consciously in order to benefit others also consciously, to start going through this inner change, this process that will take us to a higher level of consciousness, which humanity is destined for. And there's no getting out of that destiny, by the way. Okay, so where was I? In other words, it is not that the mitzvah, which is a commandment, should expand our will to receive, meaning that by keeping the commandments we would be generously rewarded. Quite the contrary. By keeping the commandment, we will reach the reward of being able to annul our self-love and achieve the love of others, and subsequently the love of God. Okay, so these commandments are keeping the laws of nature, which is the laws of giving and bestowing. If we keep those laws, we would not have any environmental problems, we would not have any wars, we would not have any conflicts. Humanity could actually make this planet heaven if we only kept the laws of nature, if we were adaptable to the common laws of nature, not human egoistic nature, but the laws of nature that exist in reality. If we adapt ourselves to that, this world would be heaven for everyone. We'd not have any hunger, no natural disasters, because we wouldn't be completely wrecking the planet. All the natural disasters that occur are simply because we're destroying the planet, and the planet needs to balance itself out. How is it going to balance itself out? By bursting out. And these bursts that we're getting in climate, earthquakes, climate changes, all kinds of impacts of floods, fires, everything is simply because the planet is trying to rebalance itself out. It's like a living organism that's working to balance itself out. And unfortunately, we, humanity, are currently still, we do not understand how to fix this. We think that planting more trees is going to help, or we think that cutting, fossil fuel is going to help. Nothing is going to help except the change in human nature. Because if I'm egoistic, what difference does it make if there's fossil fuel used or electric cars used? It doesn't make a difference. I want to profit from both of them. If my ego is currently in everything to profit, I'm going to abuse both of them. Car batteries and most rechargeable batteries run with copper. Okay, they need a lot of copper, good quality grade copper, to be manufactured. Where do you think you're going to dig out all the copper from? You have to dig deep into the world. You got to dig, start getting copper out. So instead of digging for fuel, fossil fuel, now you're digging for copper, or you're going to be digging for gold, silver, platinum, any precious metal that you would use for anything. At the end of the day, you're sucking the world dry, be it fossil fuel or some other precious metal as an alternative. So it's not going to change anything. No matter what humanity does, it's not going to change anything until humanity understands that the way we live needs to change. And this is called an inner change in spirituality. Hopefully we can also get there by education, but a person with a dot in the heart has a higher level of understanding that this is how it is. People on the outside, they don't have this conscious understanding, because if you don't have this, inner development, then there's nothing really to talk about with a person on the outside. So this is why we must endeavor to work in a good environment to go through this inner change. And as we go through inner changes, actually the whole world is impacted. Simply because laws in nature impact the whole of nature, the same thing applies to humanity. So if a fraction of humanity starts to make this inner change, then what happens is it becomes a ripple effect, and other people start to get conscious as well. So as we elevate ourselves, we are also elevating humanity, because we're all interconnected in humanity as well. just like in this drawing. Now we can understand what our sages said about the verse, place them. It comes from the word potion, as well as placing. So if granted, it is a potion of life. If not granted, it is a potion of death. Basically what it means here is, if a person attains spirituality, he or she attains life. And if he or she doesn't attain spirituality while living in this world, they're going to end up dead, which is what happens to us. So there's no denying it. Everybody is born, everybody lives, and everybody dies. If you become a spiritual person, spiritual meaning living in a higher level of consciousness, then that higher level of consciousness becomes your permanent state, and your bodily senses and consciousness become irrelevant, because you become a being that lives above that perception. It's actually the same thing in our bodies as well, right? In our bodies, we also have the human in us, okay, our intellect and our feelings. We also have the animate level, which is our flesh, okay? So our animate level is the flesh and stuff. That makes us like an animal. You know, we've got fur, I've got a lot of fur lately, okay? But just like a dog, right? Just like dogs, monkeys, we've got hair, we've got bones, we're made of meat and flesh and bones, right? So just like that, we're at the animate level. We have the vegetative level inside of us as well, which is our hairs, our nails, okay? Why? Because they grow just like vegetables do, just like flowers grow. And we also have the still level, which is our bones. Okay, after a while, that's where it is. It's just keeping the structure together. So every human being is also made of still, vegetative, animate, and human levels in creation. Therefore, this whole body, just like this one body is connected, the whole of reality is also connected. And if what we now need to do is attain this spiritual consciousness, which then becomes one level above our corporeal level. So on top of the human level that we have here, what we will build is one higher level. It's called the spiritual level. Now, just like when we cut our hair, it doesn't hurt us. Why? Because it belongs to the vegetative level, but our body belongs to the animate level, and that's where we exist. So because we live in the animate level, the things that happen at the vegetative level, they don't hurt us. So if we increase and elevate one step higher to live in a higher level of consciousness, then this animate formation that we're living in right now, this corporeality, becomes painless and irrelevant. Just like when we cut our hair or our hair falls off and we become bald, our body doesn't die. So when we become a higher level of consciousness, we live in that consciousness. So when our body dies, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. It's just like my hair fell off, just like I cut my nails off, or just like I changed my shirt. It doesn't matter. You live in a higher level of consciousness, and there you exist without corporeal death. This is also in nature this way. So it's not a far-fetched concept. It's in fact a very logical concept. All right. So I'm sure we can all get our heads around this understanding together. So basically it's all saying if you become spiritual and you're granted this thing called a soul, then hey, you become an entity, an existence at a high level of consciousness, and therefore this bodily existence becomes irrelevant. And if you're not granted, means that one engages in spirituality and commandments to multiply self-love, so the body would acquire possessions in return for this work. So if we don't end up studying spirituality, we run after the corporeal pleasures, corporeal gains in life, then we're just going to end up with corporeality dead. There's no getting away from death if you live in that corporeal existence. Every day, people are running around to become more happier by fulfilling themselves with something. they won't be happy. They cannot be happy simply because we learned in our previous semesters that desire and fulfillment cancel each other out, and you keep having to run after a new desire to maintain fulfillment. It's just not going to work out. So the only way to exist and live happily is to elevate yourself to a higher level of consciousness. And if you don't get there, that's it. You live, you die. If one is granted, one's self-love, is nullified, and he or she aims to receive a reward that is the strengthful love of others. By this, he will reach the love of the Creator, that his only wish will be to give contentment to the Creator. So by annulling our self-love, what happens is we begin to encounter this love of others and the love of the Creator, which is actually, like I said before, it is an ability, it is a new trait that we're acquiring. It's not like, love, it's not like God appears in front of you like Father Christmas and all of a sudden you love them or you love him. That's not what it's talking about here. When you're granted the love of others, it means you are granted a certain higher level of consciousness where you live and exist outside your bodily boundaries. And those bodily boundaries, as you know from previous lessons, is called the desire to receive for oneself. And when a person can exit that, that person can now exist in a higher level of consciousness, which means to live in the same realm of the Creator and giving contentment to the Creator. That actually means giving contentment to the Creator means to be actually bestowing just like the Creator. That's what it's talking about. So the objective of the exercise is not to become, something that's constantly giving the Creator contentment. No, it means we're acting and behaving in reality like the Creator. So this is a concept which we're already familiar with from previous lessons, because we understood that the purpose of life is actually to be like the Creator, to bestow like the Creator, to be engaged in reality like the Creator, and to exist in that state. So this is not a far-fetched concept, it's not a new concept for us, but the way to get there is by nullifying ourselves and by nullifying our ego. Actually, when we say nullifying oneself, we're talking about purely nullifying our self-love in order to connect with somebody else so we can get to love them without the self-love's interference. So we want to build this pure love with another entity in connection without the dirt of our self-love, without self-benefit, that is. All right? And that's the whole idea, that's the whole trick behind the love of others. So we shouldn't look at this article like an article where Rabash is telling us to behave like, like good people. This is not an ethics article. When we're studying the love of others, when we're studying how to be good to others, we're not studying ethics. We are studying a methodology by which a person can change him or herself to become like the Creator and attain a higher level of consciousness. This is very important to understand in the wisdom of Kabbalah. We do not teach ethics. We do not teach corporeal ways of behavior in Kabbalah. This is not what this wisdom is for. This wisdom is purely for sensing the Creator while living in this world and actually attaining the thought of creation, the thought of the Creator while living in this world. So it's a very, very straight cut approach. It's for personal change and the way we change ourselves. All right. So it's very important for us to diagnose ourselves during this process. Very important to understand our nature during this process, and also very, very important to understand the general laws of nature. So we will have these inner contradictions where we can start to measure ourselves and reality, and accordingly make changes, or see where I need to change actually, so that we can start going forward into spirituality. Therefore, love of others is very important in the sense that actually trying to apply it in the group also shows me where I am incapable of doing such actions. These are very important for us to see, because our nature is egoistic. So the first thing I really need to understand is how my egoistic nature works. And in order for me to really clarify the depth of my egoism, I have to do actions which are against my egoism. And that action of loving others without any self-benefit or self-interest is precisely against our nature. But that specific action clarifies for a person what specifically to correct, what to aim for, what to target in making that inner change. Right? So this is not some kind of kindergarten game that we're playing when we're talking about love of others. It's a very in-depth scientific approach to diagnosing, discovering our nature, and then actually developing a way to approach it so that we can make that change in order to attain a higher level of perception. So this is why for the people on the outside who live in corporeal reality, when you do talk to them about Kabbalah, which I advise you not to, they'll look at you like, you're just not in reality, you're just not realistic, you're in some kind of la-la land. And in this article is specifically warning us not to engage with spiritual matters with people on the outside, which also he mentioned in another article before on the purpose of society when we went over it. Are there any questions, Anthony?
So far, no questions.
So far, no questions. Okay, now this lesson is on YouTube, so you can watch it anytime, or if you're not watching it live, you can always send us questions. And we'll be more than happy to answer them. On our YouTube page, there is an email address, I'm thinking. Is there an email address and details of the website on the YouTube page? So you should be able to send us emails from there. Check us out. You can also go to our webpage and also visit us. Get in touch with us if you wish to study as well. You should also know there are self-study courses as well, which you can apply to. But this YouTube course overall will cover everything that is in the self-study course. And the reason this is on YouTube is so that anyone can actually freely watch it, freely delve into it without having to go through all the administrative registrations and so forth. However, though, if you do wish to study in depth, I seriously recommend you join the study through the website, so you can have a structured study that goes forward as well. Because the wisdom of Kabbalah is a science, and like all sciences, it requires a certain study procedure where you can begin to evaluate your life, the general life, your reality, the way you perceive reality, and the general laws of nature, how you're integrated into reality, where you can move, how much you can move in reality, how you impact reality. All these things are basically a process of studying and getting to know yourself and getting to know life and reality, and from there moving forward into opening up that spiritual perception that starts with that dot in the heart. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe our lesson for today is over. It didn't last as long as I expected. However, though, we managed to get over some of the core topics and managed to wrap up a summary at the end. If you do have any questions, though, please let us know. We'll answer them in the next lesson. Until then, all the best. Have a great day or an evening.